This is episode 64 of the Fitness and Post podcast. To access the show notes for this episode, please visit fitnessandpost.com/64. This episode is sponsored by Cinemody. Cinemody produces high-quality, royalty-free, and post-friendly second-unit stock and visual effects footage for filmmakers. You can find their second-unit collection at cinemody.com. That's CINEMOTI.com. And as a listener of the Fitness and Post podcast, we're offering you an exclusive 15% off discount code that's good for any order. Just enter FIP15 during checkout. Again, that's FIP15 for 15% off any order. This episode is sponsored by EditStock.com. EditStock provides high-quality, uncut film footage for those who want to learn or practice the art of video editing. This cool service offers raw footage from a variety of genres, including action, comedy, sports, and documentary, so you can pick the same kinds of projects you're looking to get hired for. EditStock offers professional feedback on your work and even allows you to use your cuts for your demo reel. Multi-user educational licenses are also available. Visit editstock.com today to download a free sample scene and use the code FITNESS to save 10% on your order. My name is Zach Arnold, and I'm the creator of Fitness and Post. You may know me as Empire Editor on Twitter. I spent the last 10 years working long hours in a dark room and battled numerous health problems because of my less than ideal work environment, and that's what led me to building Fitness and Post. Whether you work in film and television post-production like me, or you're a designer, programmer, or anyone working a sedentary job all day, we bring you the practical tips, tools, and resources to bring health and wellness back into your life. You spend all day fixing in a post, now it's time for some Fitness in Post. Hello, and welcome to the Fitness and Post podcast, where it is my mission to help you optimize the most powerful operating system that you have, yourself. In last week's episode, I spoke with fitness expert Ben Greenfield about what being sedentary all day long is doing to our bodies, how standing isn't the answer, and how even regular exercise won't undo the negative effects of never moving. If you want to listen to that episode, just go to fitnessandpost.com/63. In this episode, I drill down even further into the problem of sitting, standing, or staying in the same position for long hours, and I look into how to troubleshoot the chronic pain associated with being sedentary. My guest today is Dr. Sadie Sanders, a chiropractic physician who specializes in the musculoskeletal system and its influence on the neurology and physiology of the human body. She works with athletes, recently injured patients, and most importantly, average stressed out Americans just like you and me. We dig into what chiropractic work is all about, and more importantly, how it can help you reduce or even eliminate the chronic pain that you're most likely experiencing. If you're interested in taking the first steps towards alleviating these pains, being more active, and learning the proper movements to realign your body to feel better and have more energy, this is the episode for you. But before we jump into the interview, I would like to announce that I am now extremely close to opening the beta enrollment for my very first online course. As many of you may know, I've been working on this course for months now. This will be a 30-day online learning course that will show you step-by-step how to sit less, focus more, increase your mental stamina, and become so active at work that you'll never feel guilty for skipping a day at the gym again. It will show you how to properly set goals that you actually stick with, how to reverse engineer your bad habits into good ones, how to modify your work environment to be more active throughout the day, how to hack your seated workstation so you can stand, and how to make the pain-free transition to a standing workstation if you choose to do so. And if that isn't enough, it will also contain a library of videos created in conjunction with certified yoga instructors, as well as this week's guest, Dr. Sanders herself, that will help you stay active, reduce stress, increase mobility, as well as alleviate chronic pain in common places like your neck, shoulders, and lower back. You asked for it, and soon I will be delivering. I will not be publicly advertising enrollment when the beta course opens. I will only be sending a private invitation via the Fitness and Post mailing list. So if you're interested in becoming a beta member, all you have to do is enter your email at fitnessandpost.com to receive your invite when the course is ready. And now, without further ado, my conversation with Dr. Sadie Sanders. I'm here today with Dr. Sadie Sanders, a doctor of chiropractic. And I must say that she is the S to my M. She is somebody that I found fairly recently that has been helping me with a lot of major issues that I have with my alignment and all kinds of areas. And I'm very excited to have you on the show today.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to be a part of this program that you've explained to me. You have some really great work that you're doing here, and it's an honor to be involved. So thank you for having me.
Yes, and thank you. And this is the reward that you get for all of the tremendous punishment that you've given me over the last 2 months.
Yeah, I'm guilty of that. I know.
Yes, you absolutely are. And I will walk into the office every time I go. I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And then I get out and I'm like, oh, I feel so much better. But it can be a fun journey. So what I want to do for my audience today is I want to really help them understand the nitty-gritty behind what you actually do, because as I'm sure you know very well, there are a lot of people that really don't understand the service that a chiropractor performs. And even further, they're thinking, and I've literally heard people say, oh, well, all they do is just crack your back and you walk out, and then they just expect you to go in and they do it every week, and they're not actually making any difference whatsoever. And I was never in that camp, but I was always a little skeptical of what the service actually provided. And then it got to the point where I was like, all right, well, I don't care if they're quack or not. Like, this hurts. I can barely move. I need somebody to fix this. And I realized that there is a tremendous amount of science and art as well to what you do. So let's just go ahead and start from square one and just explain to people the basics of what a chiropractor does and your specific background.
Okay, so chiropractors, we all have one common goal in mind, and that is to make the spine move correctly. We have so many different types of chiropractors in the professions. Some will specialize in nutrition, some in pediatrics, some in functional medicine. We work with a lot of athletes, sports therapy, rehab in my office. So there's this huge umbrella term, but when it comes down to it, every single chiropractor is looking for joints in the spine that don't move through a full range of motion, and then we're moving them through a full range of motion. The thing that we really focus on are your biomechanics, which means how's your body moving? Are you using too much tension from one muscle? Are you moving one joint too much? And then really we're about balancing out the body, making sure that you're even right to left, front to back, and nothing is really asymmetrical. So if you were a new patient that walked into my office, we would check your posture. We would see if maybe one side is pulling, if maybe you're rotating in one direction. We check every single joint in the spine, which ones are moving too much, which ones are not moving enough. And then we correct that and teach you how to correct it yourself. And that's really the big part, is self-care. So you could come to me every single week and get adjusted. And by the time that the next week rolled around, you could have done enough damage and stress to your body that you need an adjustment again. Or you could take initiative and work on some self-care, and you really wouldn't have to see me all that often. That's the nitty-gritty of it.
So then the next question I have is a layperson that really has no understanding of what a chiropractor does and has never really been in there. What is actually happening when I hear the pop? Like, I can just crack my knuckles by myself. Why do I need somebody to crack my knuckles and crack my back and crack my hips? Like, whatever. Like, seriously, you go to school just to crack somebody's back. Like, what is it that's actually happening so people understand there's more to it than, oh, I crack my knuckles and they're better?
Okay, so that's a two-part question. So the first is, what does that sound? And the second is, why can't I do it myself? So the what does that sound is pretty easily answered. When you move a joint through a full range of motion, if it hasn't moved that way in a while, there's a little bit of a gas buildup. You get the pop noise, that's the noise. Not really anything fancy about that. Sometimes we even get a really good adjustment without the pop noise, but it's more common that you have it. The second part of that question is, why can't I just do it myself? Well, I went to school for a very long time to make sure that I knew when I should adjust somebody and when I should not adjust somebody. So that's part of that. And the other is specificity. So if I were to try to crack my own neck, I'm not going to be able to hold my fingers in the right direction to make sure that I am not rotating one segment that's too mobile and just trying to get on the one that's tight. I mean, it's just not possible. You can't be that specific with yourself. So when somebody tends to want to crack their own neck or their own back, they're actually cracking the area that's moving too much. not the one that's too tight that you're sensing all the time. And that's why if you're a chronic cracker, you feel the need to do it every hour or two because you didn't get to the actual tight spot. You got to the loose one right next to it. So does that pretty much sum up that question for you?
Yes, and I just want to clarify, you just called me a cracker, correct?
I did.
I just want to make sure we have that recorded. Yeah, so I'm a chronic cracker. There's no question. I've been to the South. I've been called a cracker many times. So that definitely answers the question where people will think that, there's the opposite is, oh, well, when I crack my knuckles, that means there's something wrong or I'm hurting myself in some way. And it is literally just gas buildup in the joints.
Yeah, it's gas buildup. And I also get asked a lot, this pops when I move, is it a bad thing? The only time a pop is bad is if you are forcing it. So when you go to crack your back, maybe you're grabbing the back of your chair and yanking yourself through. That's just not safe. Or if a pop is painful, you can get little pops here and there with no pain. And those aren't really anything that I worry about with my patients.
So the real reason that I wanted people to listen to this show, it's great to get a little bit of a background on what a chiropractor actually does and the service they provide. But I think the really important reason that I want you on the show today is to explain to people what is happening to their bodies over time as they chronically are working in front of computers. Because I'm assuming that the majority of the customers that you have are coming in and they have similar issues because they're sedentary, whether it's sitting, which I'm guessing is the majority of people, or people like me that are sedentary but standing and coming in with a lot of the same chronic issues. So can you just talk about some of the negative adaptations that are happening in the body from a biomechanics perspective and just explaining here's what's happening to your body when you're doing all this all day long, and then we'll start to go on ways that we can start to reverse it.
Okay, so let's talk first about structure and the spinal structure. So we have these 24 bones that start at the very top of our neck and go all the way down to our tailbone. And each one is supposed to have a small amount of movement that globally makes it possible for you to maybe touch your toes or turn your head to back out of the driveway. And the way that we keep every single one of those bones healthy is to make sure it's moving the correct amount. Now, if one area gets tight, your body actually adapts and it assumes that it doesn't need to move anymore. Our bodies are very, very efficient machines. And anytime that we aren't using something in it, it says, I'm not really needing this anymore. And it kind of walls it off a little bit. So if I'm somebody who is sitting all day long with my chin poked out and my neck is very tight, my body is going to start to build some scar tissue in that area. And when I do try to start moving around again, I just don't have the range of motion that I should. A couple different things happen in this scenario. It's going to find the motion somewhere else. And that's where disc injuries come from. So if my ligaments are very tight surrounding part of the neck, and the ligaments are the parts of the body that attach bone to bone, if they're very tight because they have scar tissue growing around them, I haven't been moving them often enough, then I still have to turn around when I'm trying to back my car out, and I'm going to wear away at another area of the spine, which is the disc, the bones the cushion that lives between the bones. And that's where we get degeneration, degenerative disc disease. We get arthritis from wearing that area out. And that can, in time, become painful from growing bone spurs or maybe causing some pressure on the nerves. That's the structural problems that we have. Now, there's a huge physiological aspect of movement as well. There's been so much research on the stimulation of the mechanoreceptors, so the movement receptors of the spine, and how that affects all of our different life processes, including train of thought, mental clarity, immunity, digestion, pretty much every physical process you can think of. So a person who is sedentary is not stimulating the motion receptors of the spine, which is not stimulating actually technically the vermis of the cerebellum in the brain, if we're going to get super scientific here. And that changes your mood, it changes your hormone production, it changes your sleep wake cycles. And essentially, you're causing damage to your body by not stimulating those functions. So it's twofold. You get some structural issues that can be permanent, and then you get some physiological changes that over time can cause chronic issues like heart disease if your blood pressure is not stimulated correctly, some cholesterol buildup if your hormones aren't being made the right way. I mean, it really takes a huge toll on our bodies.
So then there's more to it than just cracking my back. Interesting. Well, great. This is where I want to go. Everybody that listens to the show knows that I love to geek out on the science. So if you want to start digging in and using big words like cerebellum, like let's do it. That is totally what I'm all about, is I really want a place where people can dig into something they wouldn't otherwise dig into, but find a very practical application with how it affects their lives. So let's say that I don't know for sure if this is your usual client, but let's just assume that your usual client is somebody that is sitting and they have improper posture. And in my industry, let's say they're doing it for 10 to 12 hours a day, because I think it's hilarious when I see all of these sitting is the new smoking articles. And they're saying sitting 6 to 8 hours a day. And I'm like, that's a half day for our industry. Like seriously, 8 hours? Like when I leave after 8 hours, I feel guilty. So when you see people that are sitting literally all day long, where they might get up 3 times, what's happening to their body? Like what specific areas are you seeing that people chronically have the same issue over and over?
Okay. So that is my typical patient that I have coming into my office. Anybody that's stressed is somebody that I see. And if we're sitting, it decays the spine. So the main areas that I see is tightness in the front of the hips, because if I'm sitting all day long, then my knees are tucking at least halfway up to my chest. We will also see tightness in the front of the chest or the pecs, and we'll see tightness in the muscles that live right at the base of your skull called your suboccipitals. Now, when these muscles are all short and tight, it changes the posture of the spine. So now my butt is going to round down if my hips are too tight, and that elongates or stretches the muscles that control the posture of my low back, which are called the lumbar paraspinals. Now, most people don't sense that their hips are too tight. Their brain will actually perceive that tension or the elongation along the lumbar paraspinals. And so you sense that you have back discomfort, back tightness, when really your back is being stretched too far. And that's why you feel that it's tight. Now, the same kind of a process happens with the pecs and then the upper back, otherwise known as the traps. So if my pecs are tight, it's going to roll my shoulders inwards. It's going to kind of bend my mid-back down further than it should. And now the posture muscles, the thoracic paraspinals, the traps that are supposed to hold me upright, they're being overstretched as well. And we feel like we have neck tightness. We feel like we have burning of the upper back because those muscles are being overstretched and they're not getting enough blood flow. Those are the main areas that I attack on those first few visits, getting somebody to understand why they need to straighten that up, why they need to open that up, because that will cause excessive movement in all the other areas. And again, we're back to that disc issue that we were talking about earlier. So getting up, getting out of that seated position, stretching those muscles out so that your spine can be balanced again, essentially.
Yeah, and as you were going through listing all the specific areas, I just sat on the other end of my microphone saying, yep, 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 yep. Those are my trouble spots. And you know, trust me, at this point, you now know my body better than I do. And you know all of the spots where I just come in and you're like, yep. And you just literally take one little tiny finger and you just press a little bit. And I'm like, that's the spot. It's like, it's crazy the way that works. But I think that the really important takeaway for me when I first started doing this and learning about biomechanics, because I've done a little bit of just like self-research and reading a few books, and I certainly am not certified and I maybe know 100th of what you do. But at the same time, I have a very basic understanding of the theory behind biomechanics. And what is so cool to me about biomechanics was this discovery that if I have a pain in my shoulder, what do I want to do? I want to rub that spot on my shoulder that hurts. But what you're doing is you're treating the symptom. You're not going after the source. And I think that's where going to a chiropractor and working with somebody that has the scientific background to understand biomechanics is going to be so immensely helpful. because like one of the cool things that you and I just discovered like a week ago or whenever it was, is I have this chronic spot that's in that spot right at the base of the skull on my right side. And you're like, oh yeah, well that's being caused partly by this muscle that's on your lower back, the quadriceps maximus or whatever the hell you call that. I don't remember. But the quad something, but it's like the lower left side of my back. And you're like, yeah, that's why the upper right side of your neck hurts. I'm like, that's crazy. So I think it's important for people to understand that when they go to grab their lower back or grab their shoulder or grab their neck, that's not actually the problem. And just explain to people a little bit, just in very, very general terms, just about the biomechanic chain and how are there these different major areas of the body that then kind of radiate out to other ones, and just explaining like how all of that connects.
Well, I'm going to hit on 2 points then. One thing is a referred pain pattern. And if you do want to geek it out and Google Trevell trigger point patterns, this is a scientist that did a lot of research on, hey, why is the muscle tight here, but they're telling me that they have pain here. So there is a very mapped out chart of the body that says if you have a knot or a sore spot in this area and I press it and hold it, it's going to cause an achy, dull pain somewhere else. And that's actually the number one cause of tension headaches. So remember those muscles that I talked about on the back of the base of the skull, the suboccipitals. If you hold pressure on there and it starts to bring back your familiar 5 p.m. headache kind of creeping along the side of your face, then you have what we call as a trigger point referral pattern. So you might have been rubbing your temple because it was achy, but that's a projected pain pattern from a very tight muscle. So that's one of the crazy aspects that I get to study and impress people with when I poke on things. But the other is understanding what makes something painful. So pain is a very tricky thing, and it's not always the source, like you're saying. So, it's coming from somewhere else. Your shoulder hurts, so you want to rub that. Well, pain can be there when something is being overstretched, when something is being tight, when something is swollen, when something is inflamed. So really what we're looking for when we have somebody come in is, where's the break in the chain? And I'm going to address that no matter where the person hurts. So if you came in and you poked at your shoulder, I would appease you by poking that spot and saying, oh, okay, right there. And then I'm going to go looking for the source. I'm going to go looking for the ones that are commonly tight. So we just look for anything along the chain that's not moving. So I'll use an example of the shoulder that we've hit on a few times. If somebody has a pain in the back of their shoulder, kind of where it meets their armpit, right? That is almost every single time caused by a tightness in the muscle at the front of the armpit. So somebody comes in, they complain about that shoulder, I touch that area, but then I go to the front of the armpit and I loosen it up, and almost every single time, oh, hey, that feels better in the back of the pit. So we look for the tight spot anywhere along that chain. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes perfect sense. And the analogy that I want to give for my audience that I think will help them understand this as well, because I have emailed now hundreds and hundreds of people in my industry, have talked to many of them in person, and almost everybody will say they have the same basic pain points. So it's very, very common. And I think that the perfect analogy to use is the majority of people that listen to the show are editors. We are people that take random raw footage and put it together into a story. And then all of a sudden you will get notes from somebody, from a producer, from a director, whomever it might be. And they're like, well, you really need to fix this, and this. And as an editor, we're like, no. That's not the problem. You're just looking at the symptom. I know what the source of the problem is. So that's an idea that we're very, very accustomed to, where I don't want somebody to tell me the solution. Just tell me the source of the problem. So if a scene is really, really slow, they're saying, well, cut this line and this line and this line. It's like, no. It's slow because the previous scene is too fast. So for those that are listening that understand that thought process as an editor, knowing that you don't want somebody to tell you how to fix the problem, just tell me what the problem is and I'll find the source of it. You're doing exactly the same thing, where I'm sure you have clients that come in and say, can you just rub out my shoulder? And you're like, it has nothing to do with your shoulder.
Yes. Yeah, that happens to us all the time. And even to kind of build on that a little bit more is, why is the front of the shoulder tight? So even though you're coming in because the back of your shoulder hurts, and I secretly know that it's from the front of your shoulder, My job then is to figure out, why is the front of your shoulder tight? So the only reason that a person comes in with tightness pain is because of a stress. And usually in my office, it's a physical stress, and a muscle that hasn't been moved in a long time is a great version of that. But it might be a chemical stress. Somebody's eating only junk food. They haven't had a glass of water in 6 months. Their body is just really dehydrated. That can cause a tight front of the shoulder because it's a chemical or stressor. If you got in a fight with a coworker and you just got really riled up about it, that can cause tightness in the front of your shoulder because emotional stress takes a toll on our body as well. So it's two-part. I have to figure out what is the actual start of it and then what made that come into play as well.
Yeah, I think that's really, really crucial to understand as well, because people will think, okay, well, I sit all day, so my lower back hurts. Therefore, I need somebody to rub out my lower back and I need them to crack it and I'm done. But one of the things that I've learned from my yoga practice over the years, and I did a show recently with Allie Hamilton, who's the owner of Yogis Anonymous. And she's the one that really helped me understand this idea that we hold certain emotions in certain parts of our body. And if somebody's listening to this saying, it's just a bunch of crap, go ahead and get mad at somebody and pay attention to your body. You are tense. You are literally holding muscles and you are tense, and you're going to hold them in different places. But again, like you were saying, this guy put together this trigger point chart. They have actually mapped where there are certain general areas where you hold specific types of emotions, and it's in your body. So what I discovered is that because I was just so type A and so into my work and so hard on myself, I was holding a tremendous amount of tension in my lower back. And it was like, what do you mean I'm holding emotions in my lower back? My lower back just hurts. Just fix it. And that was a huge revelation for me. And another example would be that if you're somebody that's really closed off and pushes people away and doesn't let people in emotionally, not only are you closed off in a spiritual sense or a mental sense, your body is physically in a position where you are protecting your heart, where you are going to have shortened pecs, and you're literally going to have curvature in your shoulders where you are physically, literally, where you can measure the fact that you're protecting your heart muscle. Is that correct assessment?
That is beyond correct. And I was from the same train of thought. I am a science girl through and through, mumbo jumbo, energetic. I had no desire to learn anything about it until I was in school, and I adjusted a patient and she started sobbing, and it was a grief sob. If you've ever heard a grief sob, you don't forget it. It's a very distinct cry, and she had no idea where it came from. And we realized that I had released an area of tightness in her body that she'd been holding that in. And I chalked it up as one weird patient, no big deal. And here I am in my 7th year of practice, and I could map out your body emotionally without ever even having a conversation with you about what's going on. And that's from clinical experience. So I started doing more research on it, and you cannot separate the body and the mind at all when it comes to science. There's no way to pull the two of them apart. So maybe you are somebody that prefers to approach your healing from the energetic or the emotional side, or maybe you're somebody that prefers to approach your healing from the physical side. I'm telling you that you're going to get good results either way. So grab one, hold on to it, and go.
Yeah, and I've actually been through that, and it scared the crap out of me. And it didn't happen in a chiropractor's office. It happened in a yoga class. And the story is that I edited all of the promotional material for The Passion of the Christ. So I edited the teaser trailer, the theatrical trailer, basically any single spot that was on TV, DVD, home entertainment, broadcast. I spent over a year spending 12 to 14 hours a day watching The Passion of the Christ. You can imagine that that's going to have a little bit of an impact on somebody. And I remember I was in a yoga class on a Saturday night, and this was right after I had seen it the first time. I actually had to go, and there was like this secret meeting in Mel Gibson's boardroom, and there are like 6 people allowed. And I had no idea. I mean, I knew what the movie was about. That's a stupid thing to say, but I really had no idea what the film was at the time, because it was like, oh, Mel Gibson made a movie about Christ. Okay, what is this? And it was so emotionally shocking to me that I literally walked out in silence. I'm like, oh my God, what did I just see? And I went to yoga class the next night, and I had a really, really tough class. And I remember sitting in Shavasana in corpse pose, just lying there. And all Allie did, and this was Allie that actually did this. She may even remember this, even though it was like, God, what, 10, 11, 12 years ago now. And all she did was she lifted my lower back slightly to give me a little bit of curvature in the spine. And I bawled my eyes out for 10 minutes. I'm like, what the hell is wrong with me? And she came over afterwards. She's like, are you okay? What happened? I'm like, I have no idea what that was. But I've experienced the grief sob coming from a physical adjustment. And it wasn't a major adjustment. It was literally just gently putting her hands on my lower back, lifting my lower back like 3 inches, creating a little bit of space, and the floodgates just opened.
Yeah, we keep tissues in every single one of our treatment rooms at the office, and it's not because people get allergies. It's because we get criers all the time.
Yeah, and I think that's an amazing insight for people to realize, and why I think it's so important to do body work like this. And it's also incredibly important to do massage therapy, deep tissue therapy, trigger point therapy, and I want to get into some of that. But before we do, what are all of my emotional issues? Maybe because now that you've adjusted me, you can tell me what's wrong with me.
Okay, so if we get a little bit into some of the energetic, the right side of the body is the masculine side, and the left side of the body is the feminine side. Have you heard that concept before? Is that something that's mind-blowing and new to you?
No, I've heard it. It's not something that I remember hearing recently, but yeah, it's not a concept that I'm like, oh my God, that's crazy. So no, I've heard something about that.
That's been around for who knows how long. So you tend to have a right IT band and hip tension, okay? Hip is linked to vulnerability or being taken advantage of. And masculinity is somebody who is a provider, is the rock. So you feel as though your work is something that leaves you vulnerable and that you spend a lot of time pouring yourself into it. And that's from a right hip that's always tight.
Damn. That's completely inaccurate. None of that is correct. It's complete BS. That doesn't sound like me at all.
Not at all.
No,
Nothing.
not even remotely. Well, okay. So that's kind of creepy, and I should not have asked that. But I'm glad I did, because it's actually really interesting that, you know, I've done maybe 10, 15 adjustments now, and not even all of them with you. Like, you have a colleague that works with you as well, and you guys just compare notes. But without ever really having a single in-depth conversation, you basically just summed up my life in one sore muscle. So I appreciate that. Thanks for that.
That's what we do. And you know, we use that power and that knowledge when we think a patient needs that nudge. But if we don't think that's the right approach to take, then we just let it be.
So now I want to go in a little bit different direction. Now that we've psychoanalyzed me, and everybody knows my deepest, darkest emotional secrets and knows that my IT band hurts on top of it. What I want to understand a little bit is, why would I go to you instead of a physical therapist? What's the difference?
So there is a huge difference in the way that we are trained. So physical therapists are trained very similar to the medical doctor philosophy, which, if we sum it up in one sentence, is, what's wrong with you? Let's put a name on it and let's throw a drug at it, or a surgery. So we wait until somebody's super sick, we call it something, and then we mask the symptoms. Physical therapy is along that same line of, okay, you have pain here, we're going to call it a tendinitis. Tendinitis needs ultrasound, stretching, and then we move on. Chiropractors, and don't get me wrong, there are some wonderful physical therapists out there. I refer to them all the time. And a lot of physical therapists are actually getting their doctorate in physical therapy. So they are doctors. It's just their thinking is very Western. Now, chiropractors, we are trained to understand that the body is this awesome healing mechanism, and it runs perfectly well if you just get out of its way and you stop stressing it out all the time. And the evidence of that is, nobody needs a drug to heal a scratch. Nobody needs to have anything in particular to fight off a viral infection. Our body does it itself. It's a smart body. It knows what it's doing. So when we address a body, we come at it with that philosophy of, if I just show you a couple little things to reduce some stress and increase some strength, then it's going to heal itself. Now, if we're getting super technical here, Physical therapists are only allowed to stretch joints. They are not allowed to adjust joints. And we talked earlier about how stimulation of the mechanoreceptors or the movement receptors of the spine is absolutely crucial to brain function, body function. So we're stimulating the spine past a point that a physical therapist is legally allowed to do, and your body will respond to that in a much more powerful way. So a physical therapist, when we refer to them at our office, it's because somebody needs more intense stretching, somebody needs more intense anti-inflammatory issues because they're not responding to self-care. They need a little extra nudge. But we continue to see them for their adjustments and for their lifestyle habit changing. People who tend to seek out chiropractors over physical therapists, they understand the value of the adjustment and how it is an overall body process and how it will really help us to follow the chain of the biomechanics that we talked about earlier. For example, a few months back, I had a patient who was training for a really awesome kind of a Spartan style race, which I think you're familiar with those.
Yes, very. And I was actually going to go there next. So continue. This will be a good segue.
All right. So he had come in to see me with some pretty sharp knee pain. Now, a physical therapist would most likely look at the knee, do a knee exam. Knee's a little swollen. Here's some anti-inflammatory processes, ultrasound, e-stim, and your calf's a little tight as well. Let's go ahead and stretch that. I checked him out. I realized that the third bone in his foot was not moving. His ankle was not translating anteriorly over his heel. So when he was stepping, he didn't have enough shock absorption in his ankle. And so that shock was going straight up to his knee. On top of that, his SI joint, which is the base of the spine where the tailbone meets the hips, it's a huge powerhouse for running, starting and stopping movement, moving the big load that our body and our booty is. And his SI joint was also stuck on that same side. So he wasn't able to really get good balance or good start and stop. So again, the force was going straight through his knee. So we evaluate the body on a bigger scale, and we can do more when it comes to that adjustment and getting the range of motion back. How's that for answering that question?
You must be so much fun at parties. Oh my God. Someone's like, my neck hurts. And you're like, well, that's because your big toe you haven't cut your nail recently.
It's a good party trick.
You're like Sherlock. I'm glad that you brought up the Spartan thing because I wanted to go into this next because I'm hoping that much of my audience knows that that's the way that I clean out the cobwebs, so to speak, and get rid of all the stress and the BS of working in this industry is that my hobby, so to speak, is doing Spartan racing. And I'd done a Spartan race at the first week of December last year. And it was at the time I was coming to you and I was Frankenstein. Like I couldn't look over in my blind spot of my car. And like if my daughter needed something in the passenger seat behind me, I literally was like, Mrr! Like I couldn't move my neck. Like I was Frankenstein and my lower back was tight. And like I would bend over and try and touch my toes and I can do it because I'm flexible, but there was all this tightness. And I remember thinking, I'm not even sure that I should be running a Spartan race because I might hurt myself further. Like there's clearly an injury here and I'm just going to injure it further. And this is stupid. But that's what I do is I run Spartan races when I probably shouldn't be running them. And I went and I did it. And I remember being at the starting line and, just getting kind of amped up and thinking, I don't know if I should be doing this. I don't know if I should be doing this. And they said, guess what? So this 3-mile race that you're running, we lied. It's 5.5. Good luck. And then everybody started running. But I swear to God, I didn't feel one thing. I had no pain. I was crawling under things, jumping over things, climbing ropes, scaling 10-foot walls, jumping right off those walls onto hard ground. I never felt anything. I felt mobile. I felt flexible. And all of a sudden I was done. And I'm like, what the hell? Like I just busted my ass for 5.5 miles, climbed over 2,000 feet of elevation gain cumulatively. It was a 2-hour race just to go 5 miles. And I felt fantastic. And I came in the next day or the day after and I said, what is going on? I don't understand because I could barely walk and I was Frankenstein. How did I run a 5.5-mile race? And the reason I bring this up is people think they can't do something like go run a 5K or start an exercise program because they just hurt everywhere. And I want them to understand that it's actually going to help those issues.
So I do remember that. And we laughed at how you are just the most abnormal person, and then I explain to you the geeky science as to actually why you're the norm. So the way that our bodies work, we talked about the mechanoreceptors in the spine a little bit. Now, the mechanoreceptors, they are the ones that send the movement. Now, there's also nociceptors. Now, nociceptors, they perceive the noxious stimuli, the annoying stimuli, the irritants, things like that. Now, the mechanoreceptors, they're the big bullies, and they tell those nociceptors when to bug off. So that's the same concept as when you were little and you would fall and you would skin your knee and your mom would rub it or she would kiss it, because then your body would sense the movement, the touch, and the pain would actually go away. Or now when we're older and we slam our hand into the drawer, and the first thing we do after swearing is we shake our hand, we move our fingers instinctively, because as soon as our body senses that movement, it shuts the pain receptors off. So by going out and being totally nuts and moving probably every single muscle in your body and moving your spine and your joints through its full range of motion, you got a huge surge of mechanoreception or movement reception. And those nociceptors, those noxious stimuli or pain receptors, they were told by your body, go bug off. We're busy here. We are sensing the movement. We don't need to feel this pain anymore. And in doing so, you kind of not only reset that nervous system, but you reset your brain chemistry a little bit, because now your body hasn't been bombarded with tons of nociception for however many hours it took you to complete that. And your body's actually able to heal during that time, because our bodies crave that movement. And on the other hand, you blew off some pretty good steam, because that's something that we love to do. We get crazy, our adrenaline's pumping. And again, that serves as kind of a numbing agent so that your body can shut off that nociception a little bit. And you were able to break that vicious pain cycle of, I'm hurting, I don't want to move. I'm hurting, I don't want to move. And instead your body says, I'm moving and I don't want to hurt.
Yeah. And I think that again, like I said before, the reason I want to bring this up is it doesn't mean that if your lower back is hurt and you threw your back out, you should run a Spartan race tomorrow. The reason I'm bringing it up, and I would like you to speak to, I'm sure you've seen this happen to more than just me. I'm sure I'm not the anomaly, but where somebody will say, oh, my back just hurts all the time, or this hurts or that hurts. And then all of a sudden they kind of push themselves just to do an exercise routine or do whatever. And they're like, I don't get it. I feel so much better. So is that basically the same thing that's happening?
It is exactly the same thing that's happening. You just have to make sure that you're finding the right exercise. And that's what, our program and what we would help you with as well.
Yeah. And I think that's what I really want people to recognize, is that even though you think that there's an obstacle in your way, sometimes that obstacle is really more of an excuse than it is an obstacle. So if you're thinking, well, I can't exercise because my back hurts all the time, well, maybe your back isn't going to hurt if you exercise.
It's getting over a small obstacle. So either if you continue to sit and you're sedentary, your back most definitely will continue to always hurt. It's decaying, it's getting degeneration. That is what's going to happen. Now, when you start up and get moving, there'll be a short period of time where you're sore and achy. But once the stress is decreased because your muscles are getting stretched out, and once the strength is increased because your muscles are growing in the correct areas, then you're over that pain hump. So it's an obstacle that's much shorter to hurdle than just sitting all the time.
Exactly. And this is now getting to the real reason that I wanted to have you on this show, is that you are now going to be partnering with me and providing a whole bunch of content in the course that I've created. And now by the time of releasing this show, I'm actually bringing on my first beta members to this course. And you talked a little bit about the self-healing process. And that's really what I want people to understand, is that this is within their control and they can do something about this. They just need the roadmap for it. Because if you're thinking, well, if I go to the chiropractor and they crack my neck and I feel better, I'm just now stuck going to the chiropractor every week for the rest of my life. And it's actually the exact opposite, where you're trying to show people, no. What I'm doing is I'm alleviating the situation first. And now I'm going to show you all the spots that you need to hit so you can not have to deal with this chronically. So let's talk about the self-care aspect of this and how that process actually works and how it is very doable and actually is essential to what you do for a living.
So even before you and I met each other, I knew that people don't have time to just sit down and do hours and hours of stretching. So I designed my treatment programs to involve 2 to 5 minutes of work per day that makes an effect on a person's body. The way that we start is, well, let me back up just a little bit. Anytime that somebody has more stress in their life than they have strength, that's when you run into problems. That's when we get sick. That's when we have pain. That's when the spine gets stuck. So, what we start doing is we start peeling away some of the stress and we start building up some of the strength. So if you never do any of the homework that I've assigned you, which I strongly discourage, you will be somebody that comes in all the time because you're not changing your stress, you're not changing your strength. If you do the homework that we give, then you're decreasing your stress, you're increasing your strength, and that means that you need less from me. You understand your own body. You are able to do what is right for yourself because you can tell, you can feel it, and you know. So we first start by peeling away layers of tightness, muscle knots that have been stuck for a long time, depending on whatever condition they have. And we generally start with that posture that we talked about, the short, tight hips, the short pecs. Now, the next step after you've loosened up is to strengthen the muscles that prevent you from curling back up into a ball again, because you're still going to sit for your 14-hour day. I know that, you know that, that's not going to change. But if I can increase the strength of your core, your upper back, your glutes, then after you sit for 14 hours, yeah, your stress was high, but guess what? Your strength was higher, and now there's no damage that you've done to your body. It's just taking the 2 to 5 minutes to stretch out the hips, strengthen up the core, the glutes to make that possible. So self-care is the why are you having too much stress and having not enough strength. That's the real cause of the stuck spine, that's causing the degeneration, that's causing the physiological changes. So we have to keep kind of backing it up and figuring out, what do we do? You're only with me in my office for a short period of time, but you're with yourself for 24 hours a day. What can I do to teach you to take care of yourself in that additional time?
Yeah, and I think it's so easy for people to just jump into skeptical mode and put on their cynicism hat and say, well, if she fixed me, then I would never have to go, and then she wouldn't be making money off of me. And I know people that say stuff like that. And I'm like,
oh yeah,
and I'm sure that you hear it all the time too. It's like, well, why would she want to fix me? Then she can't make money. It's like, because these are good people. That she chose a profession that helps people better their lives. But there are so many people that can't wrap their heads around that. But I digress. Like that's getting on a soapbox. But that just drives me crazy.
Yeah, and you know what? If I didn't teach you these stretches and these different strengthening issues, then I would just tell people that they do have to see me forever, and that's actually not the case. So anytime that you have more your stress than strength, that's when you need me. But if you can do your part on that, you'll need me a heck of a lot less.
Yeah, and I think that once people realize that, oh, wait, I only have to do 2 to 5 minutes a day, and you can actually show me what I need to do, well, that's doable. Because if you tell somebody, listen, you're going to have to run 5 miles a day, and you're going to have to change your diet, and you're going to have to get an extra 3 hours of sleep, and then you're going to be healthy, people say, well, screw that. I'm not doing any of it. I'm going to work my 14 hours, and I'm going to sit, and I'm going to go home, I'm going to drink a beer and watch Netflix, because that's what I do. And what I'm trying to show people is there's a much, much easier way to get through the day, to have more creative focus, to have more energy, and to fix these issues while still working a 14-hour day. Like as of right now, we're actually recording this in the evening. It's about 7 p.m. I've been working since 6 a.m. this morning. I have 17,000 steps right now. That's just because I find ways to move all day long. I set specific rules and triggers to make sure that without even thinking about it, just habitually, I become an automated robot where at the end of the day, if you said, what'd you do today? I'd say, I don't know, I didn't do much of anything. Well, then how did you get 20,000 steps? Like, because I developed those routines. And what you've helped me do is realize, all right, well, if my lower back hurts, I need to stop rubbing out my lower back, and I need to stick a lacrosse ball here, and I need to put the foam roller here. And that's something that you and I are working on together that will be available in this course. And again, hint, shameless plug, I'm looking for beta members that want to work on this with me. But the idea is that we will say, hey, here's an area where I think that, I'm chronically sore. And granted, at the end of the day, full disclaimer, you should have a professional check it out. Don't just think that a video course is going to show you everything that you need to know. But it's very approachable that once you understand some of the basic biomechanics of what's going on with your body, there is an entire protocol of self-care that you can do literally from your phone, from your office during the day. So if you've just been saying, oh, I sit all day long, I'm so exhausted, my lower back hurts, but this is just the way that it is in this industry. There's nothing that I can do. It's complete BS because it's completely within your control to fix it. And what we are doing is providing the roadmap and the tools and the knowledge to be able to get over that hump and move forwards.
Absolutely. And I've been doing that in my office for a long time. And now it's great to have the access to be able to share that with more people.
And I'm sure that it just drives you nuts where you, like you had said, you have people that come in week after week after week. Oh, did you do the stretches? No. Did you do the stretches? No. And you're like, really?
Yeah, I guess they just want to see my beautiful face is what it comes down to.
I mean, sure, there's that. But I know that for me, I will actually walk in and I'm like, no, I didn't do the stretches yesterday. Like I actually feel bad about it because it's actually something that I'm really, really intent on doing. But there are just days when stuff comes up and you just don't get to it. But the days that I will literally, like you said, 2 to 5 minutes, once or twice a day, and I will just do it. And all of a sudden I'm like, wait a second. It's 10 o'clock at night and I don't hurt at all at this place where I just expect to be in pain right now.
Exactly.
So it's not this overwhelming amount of work that needs to be done or these crazy pretzel stretches. All you need to do is learn what are the few tools that I need in my office that are very inexpensive that you can put under a coffee table, under a desk. It's not like I'm asking people to go get a Bowflex and throw it in their office because a Bowflex is a piece of crap anyway. But you get my point. But the idea is that the routines are there. And like I said, when some people will say, yes, I'm going to do it, and then they don't, what do they often say? Like, if you're like, well, okay, well, I'm going to do these stretches, but how can I actually do them? What would you usually tell somebody?
I demonstrate it for them. I let them know what's going on. And I have them tie it with something they're already doing throughout their day. If I'm having somebody work on balance training, they're doing it while they're brushing their teeth. If somebody has an exercise that they do 2 times, you do it while you're changing your clothes. It's something that if you aren't able to do it, then it's because you're not choosing to do it. We simplify it as much as we can so that I assume that everybody's as busy as I am. We've both been working for 12 hours at this point, and I've gotten my exercises in today. And so I assume that you can as well.
Well, and I'm sure that you've also heard this one where somebody will say, yeah, I set an alarm on my phone,
and then I snoozed it.
But then I just snoozed it. I just ignored it. And that's a very, very common thing. And I went through that phase a few years ago as well, where I would actually say, yes, this is a priority for me. I need to do my stretch, or I need to do whatever X, Y, and Z activity is. But you set your phone and the alarm goes off and you're like, I'm in the zone. Go away. I'm going to do it later. And then you forget to do it. And then at the end of the day, you're like, I forgot to do that thing. Oh, well. And then you're done. And part of what this course teaches and the actual foundation of the course is not, here's how to use a lacrosse ball to roll out your whatever. It's here's how to build the foundational habits so you don't even have to think about or need the phone alarm. It's just something that comes to you habitually where you will walk away from your desk and do it without even thinking about it. So that's a huge barrier that I hear from a lot of people as well. I downloaded the 7-minute activity app and I used it for a day or two, but then I just forgot about it, or then the alerts would come up and then I would just stop using it. And that's not a problem with the app. That's a problem with psychology. And it's not even motivation, because everybody's motivated to a certain level to want to, do something better for themselves. I mean, there are some people that aren't, but for the most part, people have the motivation, but it's not about motivation and it's not about willpower.
It's about habits. It's about patterns. I agree.
It's about habits and it's about patterns. Because I've read different accounts, and maybe this is something you can speak to as well, but I've read up to the point where they've charted that almost 95% of daily human behavior is habitual and only 5% actually requires conscious thought. And whether or not that's completely accurate, I don't know, but just the mere concept of that is scary. But if you can learn how to master your habits and learn how to master behaviors where you don't need to direct energy towards them, that's where the real power starts to come in.
Yeah, and then where we come in is, okay, you have that habit, you have that pattern. What do I do with these 2 to 5 minutes that I've set aside to get the most bang for my buck?
Yeah, and that's one of the hurdles that I came across for a while, as I did get to the point where I would always take the activity breaks, and then I'll say, all right, I'm taking an activity break. What the hell should I do right now? I don't know what I'm going to do. Therefore, I'm going to go on Facebook.
Then that's where we come into play, and I give patients a variety of different things depending on what's going on that day. You have a headache. Here's what Sanders told me to do for my headache. My upper back is burning and tight. Oh, yeah, that's what she told me to do for that. And that's what I'm going to package and put into these little bundles for you. So if you're somebody who chronically has numbness in your hands, all right, how do we attack that? Here's somebody whose hip is always tight and it kind of radiates down the back of the leg. All right, here's our protocol for that. So if we package it into these tiny little few-minute protocols, and then you're set to go.
Yeah, and it's amazing what just those 5 minutes a day, what a difference they can make. Like for me, like you said, I have chronic IT band issues on the right side, which now I know I have major masculine issues. So I'm glad you brought that up. But I literally couldn't get through a race of more than 8 miles without feeling stabbing, shooting pains, like somebody had a knife and they were digging it into the outside of my knee. But then once I learned that I need to stop rolling my knee and I need to start rolling my upper hip, the gluteus, and all these other fancy words that you use like butt. Once you start rolling these very specific areas that have nothing to do with that area, it just all went away. And now when I run, it's like I'm floating on a feather.
Absolutely.
It's really important that people understand that it's very doable. It's very approachable on your own. You just need to understand what is the protocol, what are the tools that I need, and that's what we are providing. I've literally been spending years and years behind the scenes building this for myself. Now that I have it built for myself, I'm now sharing it with everybody, and I'm very, very excited to have a licensed professional behind it, so it's not just some random guy that edits for a living that's saying, oh, I'm a fitness guy now, because that's not what I'm doing. I bring together the people that are the experts because it's what works for me.
Mm-hmm. And I'm very happy to be one of those people for you.
So that having been said, I'm going to let you go because it's been quite the amount of trial and error just to get to the point where we could record the show. So I want to let you get back to your life. And that's a whole nother episode that we could talk about how we just got you on the show itself. But before we go, I want to let everybody know you are actually local in Los Angeles. So it is tremendously worth the time and the energy if you are wherever you are in LA to do the drive to find you guys. So just tell us the name of your clinic, where you're located, where we can find you online, because I want to make sure people know that help is very, very close and around the corner and very approachable.
All right. So I am the owner of a practice called Health and Human Performance. I have chiropractors that work under me and with me. And I also have several massage therapists, yoga instructors, and a personal trainer on my staff as well. We're located in Woodland Hills. So we're right next to Taft High School off of Ventura, kind of between Winnetka and DeSoto. And to plug for myself here, we also accept lots of major medical and motion picture insurance, which I know is a big thing in your industry. And we're very good at getting people in as quickly as we can and getting them set up on the right treatment plan.
Yeah, and I think that the really, really big bell and whistle that people need to hear is if you have motion picture insurance, it's free.
Yes,
I have gone 20 times. I haven't spent a dime. It is the most amazing thing ever. Like, I've never had a service where I could go and get the kind of services provided and not even have a copay. So if you have motion picture and you're saying, but I live in Studio City, for the love of God, it's free. Like, oh my God, seriously. Like, it is amazing the difference that this can make. And with motion picture insurance, it's free.
It's free. It is free. It is free.
So on that note, I'm going to let you go, but you and I will be speaking a lot more, and people that are joining my beta program or joining further programs later on, they're definitely going to get to know you very well, get to know your face, get to know your vast level of knowledge. So I'm very excited about that, but I'm going to let you get back to your life now.
All right. Thanks so much. It's been an absolute pleasure with you today.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Bye.
Thank you for listening to episode 64 of the Fitness in Post podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to access any of the resources discussed, visit our show notes at fitnessinpost.com/64. This episode is sponsored by Cinemody. Cinemody produces high-quality, royalty-free, and post-friendly second-unit stock and visual effects footage for filmmakers. Let's say that you have a restaurant scene, but you just don't have enough activity in the shot. Need some additional extras? Cinemody has the footage for that. Or maybe you need to add some three-dimensional depth to a flat shot. Want to add a defocused tree branch in the foreground? Cinemody has that too. Their flagship second unit post-friendly footage features live-action visual effects content that can easily and affordably add production value and polish to your next project. You can find their second unit collection at cinemody.com. That's CINEMOTI.com. And as a listener of the Fitness and Post podcast, we're offering you an exclusive 15% off discount code that's good for any order. Just enter FIP15 during checkout. Again, that's FIP15 for 15% off any order. This episode is sponsored by EditStock.com. EditStock provides high-quality, uncut film footage for those who want to learn or practice the art of video editing. This cool service offers raw footage from a variety of genres, including action, comedy, sports, and documentary, so you can pick the same kinds of projects you're looking to get hired for. You know the frustration of needing a reel to get a job and then needing a job to get a reel? EditStock solves this old chicken and egg problem by allowing you to use your cuts for your demo reel. EditStock is ideal for assistant editors trying to move up, editors transitioning to a new style or genre, and people who are brand new to editing. EditStock can even give you professional feedback on your work. Best of all, every time you buy raw footage on EditStock, 30% of the purchase goes to the filmmaker who created it. So you can help these indie directors earn back their budgets. Multi-user educational licenses are also available. Visit editstock.com to download a free sample scene and use the code FITNESS to save 10% on your order. Thank you for listening. Be well.